Alright, in this video we are going to see how to create this countdown timer with HTML, CSS and JavaScript. We are going to start this from scratch. That means start with a blank page and we'll create HTML, CSS and JavaScript required to create this. Now let us see what it really does. Now I'm going to set a timer for learning something new called learning Angular 10. So the date I'm going to fix this is on, let's say 6th. Now let's create it. So it says the title and you have 2 days 7 hours and 55 minutes to complete, and on each second you can see the timing is getting decremented on 1 second. Now in case if I have changed my mind, I want to reset it, I'll click on reset and here you go. We are going to start from scratch, so start new. Now in case if the 2 days is completed, how does the view look like? Now let me show you that. So let me create some task and I'll set the same date as of today and click on create. Now this is how the timer completes. Now it says countdown complete. You have set this time on the particular day and for the task React.js, and in case if you want to refresh, click on refresh. And we have added animation, validation as well. If you click create, it will say that you have to select date to proceed forward. Now we can see there is a background video going on. So let's start it from scratch. The first thing what we are going to do is, just to give you the intro of my playlist, this is going to be the 51st project of my JavaScript project. So I'll leave the source code in the description, you can follow along. You can visit the playlist which has more than 50 videos of similar kind of projects we have started from scratch. Fine. Now these are the steps which you are going to follow to create this particular project. Now to start we need an HTML document. Let's create one. So let me show you what are the documents required to create this. HTML document, style sheet, script tag, script file, and finally we need the video file. So that is the video which is running on the background. Now let's create a HTML file, exclamatory. First let's save this and let us no, let's say that we are using HTML in this document. Just by naming it, Visual Studio identifies this as an HTML document. I'm going to name this as demo.html. Now let's create style sheet, demo.css. Let's create script file, demo.js would be good to keep. Cool. Now let's start creating exclamatory tab. We have emmet installed, so it would give you the plain HTML template. Let us link the style sheet first, demo.css. Now let's link the script file. The file name is demo.js. Now the HTML that we need is, we need a parent container. So inside the parent container we are going to hold 3 sections. The first section is input field, input container. Let's use a camel case so that we can copy paste it on the JavaScript as well. So this is the first div. The second div is the countdown container dot, and the third div is complete container. So sorry for the name, you can understand that this is going to show you that the container the countdown has completed. Cool. So the first let me show you the HTML. So we have this sections in the input field, input container. So let's start that countdown timer. Let's make this h3 and then we have input field. Let's create a div. Inside the div, let's have a label, and I am going to leave this for now. And what is the task name? And then input field type text. Since we are using input field, we need a form, so let's first create form. Action, we don't want action for now. We'll just give the name or ID as form. So this is the first input field. Let's use the second input field, when, and the type is going to be date. If you're familiar with HTML, you know we can give ID. So what is the ID I'm giving it, and whatever ID you're giving to the input field, the label should have attribute, and we need to use the ID of the input field on the for attribute. So this is for accessibility. Now div, we need a button type equal to submit, and let's give the name as any name, start. Let me show you how does this look. Demo.html. You can see this is exclamatory which got. Now let's give the video tag. Inside video we can have source src equal to the name of the file. I have given the name of the mp4 file as video.mp4, and I want this to play on mute, and I want it to be on loop, and I want it to autoplay. And I don't need control, so I'm leaving the control attribute as it is. Now with this simple thing, you might have receive, or you might have video on your screen, and as we know. Now let's create an overlay section with div video overlay. Cool. So that's done. Now I would recommend you to let's start by this. So for all the element I need two things. I need some default stylings. So let me grab this from my example. So I'm using the Google font Oswald for all the element. I'm adding the Google font Oswald, and I'm removing the style which is added by browser. So if I show you, you can see there is the margin and padding on all the sides. If I refresh it, it is gone. Now let's add the video div video position fixed, left 0, top 0, width of 100 vertical width, height of 100 vertical height. Refresh it. So I want this to cover it, so object fit cover. Cool. Now let's have the video overlay. Let's just copy paste it to avoid the silly spelling mistakes. The same way, use this, except we don't have image, so we can skip this. Refresh it. Let's give the background color white. Let's use the black with transparent RGBA. 0 is for black, and with opacity 0.5. Cool, you got it. Now let's take our container at the top, or that means at the center. So it's very simple. Get the container div, use position absolute, top, I need top from 50%, left from 50%, transform, translate minus 50% from left from x-axis and minus 50% from y-axis. Now to see this, we need to give width and height. Let's say width 300 pixel and height 400 pixel, and background color, just to see, I'm going to make this as white. Height 3 with 400. Cool. Now we make this transparent as we did for the what do you call, overlay. We'll use the same trick, RGBA 0 absence of color 0.5, and you got it. If you want, let's add a box shadow to it. 1 pixel top and bottom, 1 pixel left and right, 1 pixel blur, and the color black. Cool. Now let's place this whatever we have inside container. We have input field, that means input container. Let's select that input container, and we'll use width and height 100% so that it gets the container width and height. And we don't need background, and I want this to place this at the center, so for that we have display flex, align items center, justify content center, and we can use flex direction column so that we can have one below the other instead of one after the other. Now let's have the color white. It's time to increase the font size inside the input container. We have H3, font size 30 pixel, too much, so I'm leaving this to you. You can have your own way. Then we have, let's make this 40. Then we have label. Let's see how does this see. It's too big. You can see we have to add the height and width. Width is 500. Okay, height, let's make this 400, 500, 800. Cool. Now we can increase our font size at our will. Since I'm on a hurry, we can skip the font size. I'm leaving this to you. You have it whatever you feel like. Let's get into the input field. Padding, top and bottom 10 pixel, left and right 10 pixel. So let's make this 10 pixel on all sides, left and right 30 pixel. Cool. Now inside that we have form. Inside form we have div. So let's have padding top 50 pixel. Cool. Now let's try to decrease the padding for input field. Then we have button, so that we can place the button at the center. Let me give a class to it. Text center. This is not bootstrap class, but we can make this class with text align center. So the button is at center. Let's add style to the button, and then let's come arrange the alignment. Padding, top bottom 5 pixel, left and right 30 pixel. Font size. Cool. Now if I inspect and let's see what we can do to fix this. Display flex, align item center, justify content center. We can do this on the div. Cool. But for the second, let's have we have an input field, and let's add a margin left of 30 pixel. Cool. I hope the first section is done. Now let's hide this and work on the second section. So choose this input container. Let's take a space and let's give display none, and that's gone. Now let's try adding anything, and let me show you the second section. So this is the second section. Let's create this section. So let's hide this, or let's minimize this. In other words, we have countdown container. The first thing we need, we have a h3, and we'll call this as title. Let me give a blank title, sorry, a demo title, learning Angular 10. Then after that we need to display this. So let's have a UL, and then we have a list item, and inside the list item let's have span, and this is going to be the day, sorry, the number, numeric value, and then day 2 3 4, then hours, minutes, seconds. I'm sorry for that, I have refreshed it. Cool. And finally we need a button saying that reset. Fine. Now let's get into the CSS. We have heading, we have h3, then we have unordered list, then we have list item, then inside the list item span tag, and finally we have button. Cool. Let's start designing it. h3, everything is set. You can see it's not visible. Let's make the color white, and let's have the font size 35 pixel, and let's take this at the center, display flex, align item center, justify content center, and let's have the flex direction column, so that instead of instead of aligning it up one after the other, we'll have this one below the other, and that's what we got. Let's have padding bottom 20 pixel. Now we'll make this list style none, so that to remove the bullet, and we'll have display flex, so one after the other. Let's have margin right 20 pixel. Let's have the font size 30 pixel. Cool. Let's try making this display block. Cool. Let's try to decrease the font size for the container. Let's make this 35 pixel. Cool. Now to make this the center, we need to give height 100%. Well, that's great. If you see, we can make this happen if we don't make this display block. We need to decrease the font size. Cool, I believe this is right. Now let's start with the margin top for the button, 50 pixel. Let's add padding. Top bottom 20 pixel, left right 20 pixel. Let's increase the font size for the button. $20 would be too small. Let's make this 30, and that's right. So we have completed this. Now let's move to the third div by making this display none. So this is going to get hide. Now let's reset this and let me show you how the countdown complete section looks like. Great, not much to have on the HTML. Let's hide this just to avoid the confusion. Let's have h3 countdown complete. Then let's have paragraph. Let's have the same text. This would be the demo text. We'll be creating it anyhow. And then button. Restart. Refresh it. This is how it looks. Let's start it by getting into the container. Inside the container we have h3. Inside h3 we have button, and then we have paragraph. Now let's make this height 100%. So display flex, align items center, justify content center, and of course flex direction column. The base font size 20 pixel and color white. Alright, and we just need to add a padding bottom. It looks fine. The same way, padding top bottom 10 pixel, left right 30 pixel, and font size for the button 30 pixel. Alright, so this is I think this is fair enough to give you the idea of each section. How does it looks? Let's get this and do the same thing again. So it is going to get blank again. Now let's remove this. Cool. So let's try making this block. In case if there is any problem, it would show up. see, it is the block that is giving you the problem. If it is block, it is giving problem. It need to be flex. See, it is causing problem. What we can do is we'll use the same thing and we'll make this on, what do you call it, in JavaScript. We'll fix this in JavaScript. So let's remove the first input field display none. So this is how it looks. Cool. Now let's start with the JavaScript. So now to start with, what we can do is, if I select the date, you see I am able to select the previous date as well. I don't want that. So that is the first thing. We are going to add a minimum attribute to this input type date with JavaScript. That was the first one. So the second one is I need to get on submitting this form. I want to get these two values. So these are the first two things which we are going to cover at present. So let's get the HTML, required HTML. Let me hide this as well. So the first input field we need, we have form document dot get element by ID. Let me make this form element. Then we need two fields. Let's grab the when and what. When is simply the date input field. So this is required. I'll show you why. I'm making this global, if you notice. And the second one is what. Input title. So the first thing, when the form is submitted, so form element dot add event listener. So on submit, I'm running a function. Let me show you the console for now. So let's try to submit. There is an error. It says form element dot add event listener. Form element is not a listener, event listener. I think it's not able to find the element form. That was spelling mistake. We have rectified it. Now when I click on submit, you should see there's a page refresh. To stop the page refresh, we need to do e.preventDefault. This will stop the page refresh. Now this e is going to have the element input fields. Now let me show you what do I actually mean. Type something to pick the date, and you see you got the element, and on this is the object, and we have a property called source element. So inside the source element, it's an array e.source element. So if I pick the first value, you should get the title. You got the title. So to get the value, you can use the property. So you got it. The same way, let me store this input title. So that is a global one. So this is not the global one. I'm writing it inside the function. So this is 1. Now what we can do is we're able to get the date. Let me submit this and show you. Type something, pick the date, click submit. It's not showing me because we haven't tried the console dot log. Pick this one, comma, refresh it, type something, give it. Now on the message, input file is not defined. Spelling mistake. And you got it. This one is the date and this one is the title. Now I want to pass, as I said, I don't it should not allow me to select the previous date. Today is October 3 and it shouldn't allow me to select the previous date. So for that what we can do is create the date function, new date, and I need the function to ISOstring, and it is going to return the today. It's the function console.log. We are going to get the date and time. If I submit, you see we got the date and time. So it's a string and I want it to split into two half. So I'll grab the t here, dot split, and I want to access the first one. So to access the first one, we need to pass the index. If I refresh, submit, now I'm getting the date. Now this today, I need to pass it to the input date. Get the date dot set attribute, and it's minimum, comma, today. Now if I show you the HTML for the date, you can see it has only two attribute, type and ID. So if I submit, on the date, you should see 3 attribute. You can see we got 3 attribute. Now it will not allow me to select the previous date. So this thing, I don't want it to be on the function. That means I don't want it to run when I click on submit. I want it to run when the page loads. So if I refresh again, if I select the date, and it is not allowing me to select the previous date. So fine, that is working as we thought. Now let's move to the second section. And now we are going to convert the hardcore date into milliseconds. So we have a function called getTime. What it does is it is going to give you the milliseconds from date January 1, 1970. So if you see, it is going to give you the current millisecond. If I try it, this is the millisecond of 50 years. If you see, it starts from January 1 and it's end on October 3, 2021. So almost 51 years. So this is the 51 years milliseconds, converted millisecond. The same way we are going to do this, so that this is how we do in JavaScript. Now what we can do is, since we got the input field, let me console and show you. We got the date. You see, we got the date. We have to convert this into milliseconds. So new date, we need to pass the received date, and I need to use getTime function, and it is the selected date. So this is the global variable. Let's make this as a global variable. Now if I show you console.log, this is going to be the huge number. Select anything, so you got it, the huge number. It is of about 51 years of milliseconds. Okay, then let's create a function that will update the DOM. Update DOM. Let's create the function at the top. So let's get the current time. So to get the current time, we just need to make this way current date. Now let's get the difference. Difference would be current date, current time, sorry, the selected date would be bigger than the current. Okay, so we need to give a validation before that. If selected date, not over here but here, difference, okay, we'll do it later on. Now let's focus on the difference. Now what we do is console.log, we'll be getting the difference between the current and the selected date. Current time minus, so this is the selected one and this is the current one. Now we need to convert this into date. So for that you can see they itself give you the parameters to convert. Let's use this at the top. We don't need years, we need second. So in short, seconds, and this is the basic calculation which we used to do, which we do for calculating the date. Now let's get this and convert the millisecond into second, and I have converted it. Now we just need to paste this. Let me show you how does this looks. Console.log days, then we have hours, then we have minutes, and finally second. Let's try picking the date. Let's pick tomorrow. It should be less than 1 day. So 0 is the day, 7 is the hour, and 9 minutes 2 seconds. Cool. Now we'll use the HTML traversing method. So we need to hide this on the HTML. Let's call this, we have used class. You can see this is a class. Everywhere we use class. So document dot query selector, it's a class. Just to save time, let's do this for the other two also. The countdown container and the complete container. So in the input let's make this input hidden dot style dot display equal to none, and we have to make the countdown container display block. So as I said, it's not going to be display block, it is going to be display flex. Cool. Now we need to populate it. We have the container. Inside the container, again we can run query selector. We need to find the span we need to use query selector all, because as you know we have more than one span tag. If I have only one span tag, I would have used query selector. If we have more than one, so we need to use query selector all. Now we can access this one by one with array index number 0 dot inner text equal to dollar. We use the backticks, so this is dys. Let's try this. Anything, select today's start, and you got day 2, so that means it is working. The same way, hours, minutes, seconds, hours, minutes, seconds, and for the element, change the index number, and I think we are done. Now let's get the title. On updation, we have the title, so let's store this into a global variable instead of this. Now we can use this. We have the value, this is the value. Now we can access the h3, not this one, we need to select this one. We can access the h3 using the countdown. The same way we have used span tag, we are going to use the same trick again. Now in this way it is just only one tag, so remove the, so this one is countdown h3, countdown h3 dot inner text equal to input field, and let's try it. Angular 10, and let's give some date, submit. Learn Angular 10 and 3 dates. Now the problem is it is not as you see on each seconds it is not changing the value. So for that, let's create another variable, count down interval, and don't save it. Let's just declare this, let. So wherever I have used wherever I have declared, I just want you to add let or where. Just to save time, I have ignored it. Now let's create a setInterval that would run inside here. Cut this setInterval, the function, and it should run every 100 millisecond, that means 1 minute, 1 second. I'll save this to a variable called, just now we have created, countdown interval. Refresh it. Let's try giving any number. You can see, and it is working. So now if you see, if I click on submit, you're getting not a number. Let's try to rectify this. So the number where we are getting is from the input field. Let's see where we are getting the number. Update Tom, here, selected date. If selected date is nothing, that's a problem with my PC. Then we can say else we can update this function. Please enter date. Let's try refreshing this. Save. I think we have to give on input date. Yes, we got it. It is going to run only when we give proper date. Cool, that is set. Now let's work on reset. So here on the HTML, the reset button is inside the countdown container. Let's try to do the same thing as we did for span and the other thing. So here we have span. Let's do the h3 itself. Button. Instead of h3, let's replace this with button. Now let's use dot add event listener. So if I click on it, I want a function to get executed, and that function should stop the timer. So here we have the timer variable, clear interval. Then we need to hide the div countdown container, dot style dot display equal to none. Then we need to show the input field container. Here it is. And we need to make the value blank, input field value, which we have got in the variable when and what dot value equal to nothing. Same way, let's try refreshing it. Select some title, select some date, click on timer will start. If I reset, the timer should stop, and this should go away, and the form should come. Timer stopped, and you see everything is working fine except the value is not hidden. All your value is not blank. Input date, input title. Get element by ID what. Let's see whether we have properly used the what. Yes, we have here what. Okay, mismatch. You can see we have declared it over here, and we have again given some values, so that's okay. Now we need to remove this. What we can do is, let's make this 2 and this also 2. Now this should work. Anything, any date, start the timer, check the console, stop the timer, and the value is also gone, timer is also stopped. Now let's check if the counter is completed. That means countdown is completed. Still select the same date. Now the value would be in minus. So in this case, let's check the difference. Here it is difference. After the difference, let's select the whole thing. If difference is less than 1, there's a problem with again. What's causing the problem? I don't know. If it is greater than 0, sorry, less than 0, then I want to show the third section. If it is greater than 0, then follow the same procedure. So if it is less than 0, that means in this case the counter is completed. So in this case what we need to do is we need to hide both the section. We need to hide the countdown section. We need to hide the input section, and we need to show the complete section. Not here, on the if block. Let's check. If I select, so before that we need to close the timer as well, or else it would be a big problem for us. That means close the interval as well. Refresh, give any name, select the same date, and it should go on minus. And you can see the date is fixed, and we also think I got the title. No, the title is not set. Let's try giving React.js on the same day. Click on start. Okay, you can see we need to populate this. Everything seems fine, but the date is also need to be set. So get the complete section. We have query selector all again. Query selector, we have h3 dot inner text equal to, we can pass the same input field value which we have got over here. Let's save this as a global variable. Now we can pass this value inside the if block. Where is the if block? Over here. Instead of h3 it should be paragraph. And use the backtick and follow the, this is going to be there because it's title. Select the text, input title, date. Here again copy paste it and make it as a global variable for date, and we have to get we have got it on the page submit over here. Title, selector, input date. Now we can use this over here. Refresh it. Let's try. Let's make this Angular 10 final work. Set the same date. Check if there is a timer running. No, timer is not running. So Angular final. Okay, it is also working. The time is also working. Now it's time for the reset option again. It's fair and simple, as we already did it earlier many times. Copy paste the same thing. Get this as a button. Okay, it's a button now. Now we can use the same trick. Copy this, paste it over here. When I click on the button, I want to stop the interval. Anyways, it would be stopped. and I want it to show the input field and hiding the container, complete container. Cool, let's try. There's an error. It says it could not find this value. I think we have not defined the container this way. We should have already called this. Now it would work. Refresh it. Learn Angular 10. Select same day. Click on submit. Countdown complete. Everything seems fine. If I click again, it got to the index page. Fine. I believe the scope of this video is done. Let's try it. Learn Angular 10 for day after tomorrow. Click on start. The counter is set for 1 day 6 hours, and if I reset it, it should switch back to the input field again, and it should stop the timer. Let's check. Timer is stopped. Now in case if I want to see the countdown complete section, React.js, I'm sorry for the spelling. Let's do this on the same day and pretend as our day is completed. Countdown complete, and the timer was set on for this particular task. If I click reset, and again it is taking back to the input field, hiding the above two section and showing the first section, and removing the value from the input field. Great, that is working. That's all for this video.